This table is for people who've actually accomplished something.
Dad, you just made a very expensive mistake.
Cake. What is this?
My father shoved my chair away from his birthday table and said, "I don't sit with a poor, useless kid." He expected me to disappear in shame. By midnight, he would learn that the daughter he had mocked controlled the debt that could take away his company, his office, and the secret he had hidden from my mother. Hello, everyone. My name is Caroline Hayes. I was 32 years old when this happened, and I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. To strangers, I was a quiet business consultant with an old Honda, a small apartment, and no interest in showing off. To my father, Robert Hayes, those things proved I was a failure. He did not know I had spent 3 years building a company of my own. He did not know I had partners, employees, or clients in 4 states. Most importantly, he did not know that 6 weeks before his birthday, my firm had purchased a $6.4 million loan that his construction company had stopped paying. That evening, I had driven to Charlotte carrying 2 things in my bag. One could save everything my father had built. The other could take it all away. Before I tell you which one he chose, I want to know where you are listening from. What country or city has this story reached? Please tell me in the comments below, because I am always amazed by how far one person's story can travel. My father's 60th birthday dinner was held in a private room at Bellamy House, one of the most expensive restaurants in Charlotte. The room had dark wood walls, crystal lights, white roses, and a long table set for 22 people. Everyone there seemed dressed for a magazine photograph. I arrived in a navy dress I had owned for 4 years. My car had been parked by the valet between my cousin Tyler's new Mercedes and my Aunt Vivian's white Range Rover. Tyler had looked at my Honda, then at me, and asked whether the valet charged extra to hide old cars. I smiled and gave him the key. I was used to comments like that. In my family, cruelty usually arrived wearing a smile. My mother, Linda, hugged me near the entrance, but she seemed nervous. She kept smoothing the front of her green dress and glancing toward my father. My younger sister, Madison, pulled me aside and whispered, "Dad has been in a terrible mood all day." "Why?" I asked. "He says the bank is being difficult." I almost laughed at the word difficult. The bank was no longer his problem. I was. But I had not come to destroy him. That is important to understand. Even after everything he had said about me, I had come prepared to offer him a way out. In my bag was a negotiated purchase agreement from a regional developer. If my father signed it, the stalled apartment project that had caused his company's financial crisis would be sold. The debt would be paid. 73 employees would keep their jobs. My mother's retirement would be protected. My father would lose money, pride, and some control, but he would not lose the company. I had spent 4 exhausting weeks arranging that rescue. I thought his birthday might be the one evening when he would listen to me without turning every conversation into a contest. I should have known better. My place card was near the far end of the table, between Madison and my father's attorney, Peter Caldwell. I reached for my chair just as a server poured the first glasses of wine. My father was standing behind me, greeting a retired banker. Without warning, he grabbed the back of my chair and dragged it away. The wooden legs scraped loudly across the floor. I thought he needed space to pass, so I stepped aside. Then he pushed the chair against the wall. "Dad?" He did not look at me. "I don't sit with a poor, useless kid." For half a second, nobody moved. Then Aunt Vivian laughed. Tyler smirked into his wine glass. My mother stared down at her plate. 2 family friends looked toward the door as if they had suddenly remembered somewhere else they needed to be. Madison quietly raised her phone and started recording. My face burned. I could feel every eye in the room, even the eyes that refused to meet mine. My father finally glanced at me. "Go sit at the bar," he said. "This table is for people who have actually accomplished something." I wish I could say those words did not hurt. They did. No matter how old you become, a parent can still find the youngest, most uncertain version of you and speak directly to her. For 1 second, I was 11 years old again, standing beside a science fair model while Dad asked why I had won second place instead of first. I was 16. Hearing him tell guests that Madison was the pretty daughter and I was the practical one, I was 27. Watching him promote my cousin Tyler to vice president after I had done most of Tyler's work for 2 years. But then I remembered the folder inside my bag. I remembered the 73 employees whose paychecks depended on what happened next, and I became 32 again. "Okay," I said calmly. Madison lowered her phone slightly. She knew that tone. Dad did not. I reached into my bag, removed a navy folder, and placed it beside his plate. You just made a very expensive mistake. The smile disappeared from his face. What is this? Open it. He stared at me for a moment, then flipped open the cover. On top was a notice printed on the letterhead of Blue Ridge Renewal Partners. Beneath it was a copy of the assignment agreement showing that the company had purchased the loan on his unfinished Parkline apartment project. His eyes moved across the first page. Then they went back to the top and started again. What does this have to do with you? He asked. Blue Ridge is my firm. He gave a short, disbelieving laugh. You are a consultant. I started as a consultant. You work from your apartment. I have not worked from that apartment in 18 months. He looked toward my mother, perhaps expecting her to explain the joke. She looked as confused as he did. I turned the page for him. 6 weeks ago, First Carolina Bank sold the Parkline note. Blue Ridge purchased it at a discount. The unpaid principal is $6.4 million. Your company has missed 3 scheduled payments and violated 2 financial covenants. My father's fingers tightened on the paper. You bought my loan. My partners and I did. That is impossible. Peter Caldwell, who had been silent until then, reached for the folder. My father pulled it away. Stay out of this. Peter's expression hardened. Robert, I am your attorney. If this is what she says it is, I need to see it. Dad slowly released the folder. Peter checked the signature page, the assignment date, and the filing information. The longer he read, the quieter the room became. Finally, he looked at me. You control Blue Ridge Renewal Partners. I own 51%. 3 former clients own the remaining shares, and your company is the lawful holder of this note. Less. Peter looked at my father. The assignment appears valid. Nobody laughed after that. I pulled the chair back from the wall and sat down. Dad watched me as though I had changed faces in front of him. You did this to punish me, he said. No. I purchased distressed commercial debt because that is part of my business. My loan just happened to appear. Your loan was offered to several qualified buyers after the bank decided your company was too risky. I recognized the project address. That was true, but it was not the whole truth. When the loan package first appeared, I had nearly rejected it. Mixing family with business was usually a terrible idea. Then I saw the employee count, the equipment liens, and the payroll reserve. If an aggressive buyer acquired that debt, it could liquidate the company within months. I knew many of those employees. Some had taught me how to read building plans when I was 19. One had brought meals to our house after my grandmother died. Another had delayed retirement because his wife was receiving cancer treatment through the company's insurance plan. I did not buy the debt to trap my father. I bought it because I did not trust a stranger to care what happened to everyone else. Dad shoved the folder toward me. Fine. Extend the loan. His tone was the same one he had used when ordering me to revise a report at midnight. That is not how this works. You just said you control the firm. I do. Then extend it. Your company is losing nearly $200,000 a month. Extending the loan without a restructuring plan would only make the problem larger. His eyes narrowed. Do not lecture me about my own company. Then stop speaking to me as if I still work for you. That sentence hit him harder than I expected. His face changed. For the first time, he seemed to understand that he could not fire me, reduce my salary, take credit for my work, or send me out of the room. He had trained me to solve impossible problems. He had simply never imagined I would learn to solve them without asking his permission. My mother finally spoke. Caroline, could your father lose the company? I looked at her. He was already at risk of losing it. I did not create the missed payments. Dad stood so quickly that his chair struck the wall. She wants us frightened. That is all this is. Sit down, Robert, Peter said. Dad ignored him. You think buying some paper makes you powerful? No, I said. But this might. I removed a second envelope from my bag. Inside was the purchase agreement from Caldwell Urban Communities, a regional developer with enough cash to complete Parkline. The company was offering $9.8 million for the land, permits, plans, and partially completed structure. It was not enough to give my father the profit he once expected. It was enough to cover the debt, protect payroll, pay the most urgent contractors, and keep Hayes Development alive. I had even negotiated a clause allowing Hayes Development to remain on the project as a paid construction manager. The company could preserve its reputation and earn additional revenue during completion. Dad read the price and dropped the pages onto the table. That is $2.1 million below our valuation. Your valuation assumed the project would be completed on schedule. It is 14 months late, and the site has been inactive since May. The market will recover. Your next payroll is in 9 days. We will find another lender. Peter shook his head. Not with the default already reported. Tyler leaned forward. Uncle Robert, maybe we should consider it. Dad turned on him. I did not ask you. That reaction caught my attention. Tyler had been defending the Parkline project for months. He was the executive supervising it. Yet instead of fighting the sale, he looked relieved. I stored that detail away. Dad returned his attention to me. You want me on my knees. I want you to sign by Friday. Or what? Or Blue Ridge will enforce its rights under the loan agreement. The collateral included the company's warehouse, equipment yard, office building, and most of its heavy machinery. My father understood exactly what that meant. His company could survive selling one failed project. It could not survive losing the property and equipment it used for every other project. You would not dare? He said. I stood and picked up my bag. I came here ready to save your company. I looked at the chair he had shoved away. You decided I was not worth a seat. I had reached the door when Peter called my name. Caroline. Wait, he was holding a page that had been clipped behind the foreclosure notice. His face had gone pale. There is another guarantee attached to this debt. I turned back. What guarantee? Peter did not answer me. He looked at my mother. Linda, he said carefully. It is in your name. My mother stared at him. What is in my name? Peter placed the page in front of her. It pledged her lake house outside Asheville as additional collateral if Hayes Development failed to repay the Parkline loan. That house had belonged to her parents. My grandmother had left it to Mom alone. Dad's name was not on the deed, and he had no ownership right to it. My mother read the first paragraph. Then she looked at the signature. All the color left her face. I never signed this. The room became so quiet that I could hear music from the main dining area beyond the closed doors. Dad stopped shouting. Madison's phone was still recording. Peter asked, Are you certain? Mom looked at him with tears in her eyes. I would remember putting my parents' home behind a $6 million loan. Peter turned to my father. Robert, where did this document come from? Dad picked it up and examined it for only a second. The bank must have mixed up the paperwork. It has Linda's driver's license number. Banks make mistakes. It also has a notarized acknowledgement from your office. Dad looked toward Tyler. It was quick, barely a glance. But I saw it, so did Madison. Tyler pushed back from the table. Why are you looking at me? I am not, Dad said. You just did. Aunt Vivian reached for her son's arm. This is Caroline's fault. None of this would be happening if she had stayed away from Robert's business. I looked at her. The forged signature existed before I purchased the loan. You do not know that it is forged. My mother lifted her head. I know. Oh, Vivian fell silent. I went back to the table and took the guarantee from Dad's hand. My mother's signature looked almost perfect. The curve of the L, the narrow space between her first and last name, even the long line she drew beneath Hayes were right. But I had watched Mom sign birthday cards my entire life. She always placed a small dot after the line, something her father had taught her to do when she was young. The dot was missing. Peter. I said, nobody leaves this room with the original folder except me. Dad stepped toward me. Those are my company records. They belong to the current holder of the debt. Give them to me. For years, that word had felt dangerous around my father. That night it felt like a locked door. Peter asked everyone to remain calm. Nobody did. Dad demanded that Madison stop recording. Aunt Vivian accused me of planning the entire dinner as a public attack. Tyler said he had never seen the guarantee before. My mother sat completely still, staring at the copy of her signature as if it belonged to a stranger. I knelt beside her. Mom, come with me. Dad said, Linda is not going anywhere. She looked up at him. I had never seen my mother look at my father that way. There was fear in her expression, but something else was forming beneath it. Anger? I am going home with Madison, she said. We can discuss this privately. You had years to discuss it privately. Dad opened his mouth, but no words came out. Madison took Mom's hand. I gathered the documents. Peter followed us into the hallway and quietly asked me to suspend any foreclosure activity until we understood what had happened. I had no intention of taking Mom's home. I said, the loan documents may give your firm that right. A right created by fraud is not a right I want. Peter studied me for a moment. Your father never understood you. Neither did I said. Not until tonight. Outside, rain had begun to fall over Charlotte. Madison drove Mom home. I sat in my car beneath the restaurant awning and called my attorney, Dana Ruiz. Dana had helped me form Blue Ridge. She was patient, precise, and almost impossible to surprise. That night, I surprised her. I told her about the dinner, the guarantee, and Mom's denial. "Do not confront the notary yourself," Dana said. "Do not accuse anyone in writing tonight. Send me photographs of every page, secure the originals, and tell your partners we need an emergency hold on enforcement. Can we remove the lake house from the collateral? If the guarantee was forged, we will challenge it. But first we preserve evidence. My father delivered the documents to the bank. Do you know that?" I thought about his glance toward Tyler. "Not yet. Then tonight you know only 3 things. The document exists. Linda says she did not sign it. Someone benefited from the bank believing she did. That sentence guided everything I did afterward. Anger wanted a name immediately. Evidence required patience. At 9 the next morning, Dana sent a formal preservation notice to First Carolina Bank, Hayes Development, and the notary named on the guarantee. The notice demanded that they retain emails, security logs, camera footage, scanned identification computer records, and every version of the loan file. At 10, my partners approved a temporary suspension of foreclosure activity. At 11, Dad called me. I let it go to voicemail. His first message was angry. "You embarrassed me in front of my family. Call me before you make this worse." His second message was calmer. "There is a reasonable explanation. Your mother signs many documents and forgets. Do not frighten her." The third message made my blood cold. "If Linda insists she did not sign, Tyler may have handled the renewal package. He has been careless before." My father had moved from denial to blaming his nephew in less than 40 minutes. I saved every voicemail. Then Madison sent me the dinner video. I watched only the final minute. The camera captured Dad looking at Tyler after Mom denied signing. It also captured something I had missed. As Peter mentioned the notarized acknowledgement, Tyler reached into his jacket and typed a message on his phone. 3 seconds later, Aunt Vivian's phone lit up beside her plate. She read the message, then immediately blamed me. Dana requested both phones through the proper legal process 2 days later. We did not receive them immediately, but Tyler's reaction gave us a direction. The bank responded faster than I expected. Its records showed that the guarantee had not been mailed or uploaded. Someone had delivered the renewal package personally to a commercial loan officer named Martin Blake on a Tuesday morning 11 months earlier. The visitor had signed the building log as Robert Hayes. The lobby camera had recorded him. I went to Dana's office to view the footage. At 9:14 a.m., my father entered the bank carrying a black document case. He shook Martin's hand in the lobby. They went upstairs together. 43 minutes later, Dad left without the case. There was no Tyler, no confusion, no bank mistake. My father had personally delivered the forged guarantee. I felt no satisfaction. I felt sick. This proves delivery, not forgery. He knew Mom did not sign? Probably. But probably is not the same as proof. The proof came from the notary. Her name was Brenda Cole, and she had worked as an administrative manager at Hayes Development for 17 years. I remembered her as a cheerful woman who kept peppermint candy in her desk and never forgot an employee's birthday. When Dana first contacted her, Brenda insisted Mom had appeared in the office and signed the guarantee in front of her. Then the security logs arrived. The office required electronic badges after a theft the previous year. On the date of the notarization, Mom's name did not appear in the visitor system. The parking lot camera showed no vehicle belonging to her. Her phone records placed her at a medical appointment in Asheville, more than 2 hours away. The Dana scheduled a formal interview with Brenda and showed her the records. Brenda began to cry. She admitted that Dad had placed the signature page on her desk near the end of the workday. He told her Mom had signed it at home and that the notarization was only part of a routine renewal. Brenda said she objected. Dad reminded her that her husband had recently been laid off and that Hayes Development provided the health insurance paying for his heart medication. Then he said, "Do not make your family suffer over a stamp." Brenda stamped it. She had broken the law. She knew that. But when she described the conversation, I also heard the method my father had used on me for years. He found the place where a person was vulnerable, then pressed until obedience felt like survival. Brenda surrendered her notary journal and agreed to cooperate. Inside the journal, the entry for Mom's guarantee had been squeezed between 2 legitimate entries written on different days. The ink was darker. The numbering had been changed. That should have answered our main question. Instead, it created a new one. Why had Dad needed the extra collateral at all? The original Parkline loan had been approved without Mom's lake house. The guarantee appeared during a later renewal, when the project was already falling behind. According to the budget reports, Hayes Development still had more than $3 million in available project funds at that time. Yet the bank had demanded more security. Where had the money gone? I had reviewed the loan package before Blue Ridge purchased it, but the documents showed only totals. Now, as the debt holder, we had the right to request supporting records. Dad refused. He claimed an internal computer migration had damaged several months of invoices. Tyler said subcontractors had submitted duplicate bills. The company's chief financial officer, a careful man named Samuel Reed, stopped returning calls. Then, late on a Thursday evening, Samuel appeared at my Rayleigh office without an appointment. He looked exhausted. His tie was folded into his coat pocket, and he carried a cardboard file box sealed with gray tape. "I should have come sooner," he said. I brought him into the conference room and called Dana. Samuel would not open the box until she arrived. When she did, he placed a resignation letter on the table. "Robert asked me to sign revised project statements," he said. "The revised numbers move expenses from Parkline into 3 profitable projects. If I sign them, the company looks stable enough to seek another loan. Did you sign?" I asked. "No." He opened the box. Inside were copies of invoices, wire confirmations, vendor agreements, and internal emails. Over 18 months, Parkline had paid nearly $1.3 million to a materials supplier called Vantage Stone and Steel. The invoices described structural steel, exterior stone, and delivery charges. But the project superintendent's logs showed that much of the material had never arrived. I recognized the address on Vantage's registration. It was a mailbox in a shopping center 10 minutes from Aunt Vivian's house. The company's owner was hidden behind another limited liability company, but Samuel had found a bank transfer that exposed the truth. Money from Vantage had moved into an account controlled by Tyler. My cousin had been billing Hayes Development for materials it never received. I looked at Samuel. "Does my father know?" Samuel stared at the table. "He knows now." "When did he learn?" 9 months ago. I showed him the first questionable invoices. "What did he do?" "He told me Tyler was correcting a temporary cash flow issue. Then he ordered me to move the expenses into a change order account." The room seemed to tilt. Dad had not forged Mom's signature to save an innocent project from bad luck. He had used her house to cover a financial hole after discovering Tyler's scheme. "Why protect Tyler?" Dana asked. Samuel took a long breath. "Because some of the money went to Robert." He removed one final document from the box. It was a closing statement for a beach condominium near Charleston. Dad had told the family he purchased it using an executive bonus. According to this statement, a company connected to Vantage had funded $400,000 of the purchase price. My father had not merely covered Tyler's theft, he had shared in it. The birthday dinner was no longer a family argument. It was the edge of a much larger fraud. Dana told Samuel that copying company files could create legal issues, so we would preserve the box, document how it reached us, and provide it to the proper investigators. Samuel agreed. Before leaving, he asked me one question. "Are you going to shut Hayes Development down?" "I do not know yet. There are good people there. Caroline. I know. They do not know what Robert and Tyler did. I know that too." After he left, I stayed in the conference room alone. This was the moment when revenge could have been easy. I could have filed the foreclosure notice the next morning. Blue Ridge could have seized the properties, sold the equipment, recovered its investment, and let my father watch his name disappear from the buildings. Part of me wanted that. I wanted him to feel small. I wanted him to stand outside the table he had built and be told there was no chair for him. But revenge that crushes innocent people is only cruelty wearing a better excuse. So I chose a more difficult form of justice. I decided to save the company and remove the people poisoning it. Hayes Development had a 5-member board. Dad controlled 2 seats directly. Tyler held 1. The other 2 belonged to outside investors, Eleanor Price and Marcus Lee. Under the company's financing agreements, a verified default allowed the senior lender to require an independent restructuring officer and restrict major transfers. The next morning, Blue Ridge issued those demands. Dad called within 7 minutes. "Withdraw this now." "No, you are trying to steal my company." I am trying to stop more money from leaving it." There was a long silence. Then he asked, "What did Samuel give you?" That question told me everything his denials had not. "You should speak to your attorney. Peter has resigned." I had not known that. Why? Because you frightened him. Peter later told me the truth. He resigned because Dad asked him to describe Mom's signature dispute as a misunderstanding and backdate a board resolution approving the guarantee. Peter refused. My father was losing the people who had once protected him, one honest decision at a time. Blue Ridge appointed an experienced restructuring officer named Evelyn Shaw. She froze payments to Vantage, secured the accounting system, and required 2 approvals for every transfer over $10,000. Dad tried to block her from entering the office. Evelyn arrived with the loan agreement, a court order enforcing access, and 2 forensic accountants. By lunchtime, she had changed the banking permissions. By evening, she had found evidence that Tyler had attempted to delete more than 800 emails. He had failed. The company's backup server preserved them. One email from Tyler to Dad was especially damaging. It had been sent 3 days before the guarantee was notarized. Tyler wrote, "The bank will renew if Linda's property is added. She does not need to know unless Parkline fails. And by then we will have replaced the money." Dad replied with 4 words, "Prepare what Brenda needs." When Dana showed me that message, I had to leave the room. I stood in the hallway with my hand against the wall and tried to breathe. My father had not made one desperate decision under pressure. He had discussed it, planned it, and used the loyalty of 3 women to carry it out. He used Brenda's fear. He used Mom's silence. And for years, he had tried to use my need for his approval. The difference was that I no longer needed it. The independent board meeting was scheduled for the following Monday. Dad, Tyler, the 2 outside directors, Evelyn, Dana, the forensic accountants, and I attended. Mom was not required to be there, but she came with Madison. Dad entered the conference room wearing his best charcoal suit, and the gold watch Mom had given him for their 30th anniversary. He looked composed until he saw her. "Linda, this is a business meeting." Mom took a seat beside Madison. "You made my home part of your business." Dad had no answer. Evelyn presented the findings in a calm voice: the project payments, the hidden vendor, the transfers to Tyler, the condominium funding, the forged guarantee, the attempted deletion of records. Tyler denied everything until Evelyn displayed the bank transfers. Then he blamed Dad. He said my father had designed the arrangement and promised that Parkline's eventual profit would cover the missing funds. Dad called him a liar. Tyler opened his phone and played a saved voicemail. My father's voice filled the room. "Keep the invoices below the review limit. Samuel watches round numbers. Once the renewal closes, we have 12 months to put everything back." Aunt Vivian had raised Tyler to admire my father. In the end, Tyler had protected himself by recording him. The people Dad taught to value loyalty above honesty had learned that loyalty disappeared the moment consequences arrived. Eleanor Price asked Dad whether the recording was authentic. He said he could not remember. Marcus Lee asked whether Mom had authorized the lake house guarantee. Dad said she had agreed verbally. Mom stood, "Do not use my silence as permission again." Her voice shook, but she did not sit down. I spent 37 years avoiding arguments because I believed peace was something I could protect. I understand now that I was not protecting peace. I was protecting you from consequences. Dad looked at her as if she had betrayed him. That was his greatest weakness. He believed any person who stopped serving him had become disloyal. The 2 outside directors voted to remove him from financial control immediately. Under the default provisions, Evelyn assumed temporary operating authority. Tyler was suspended. Dad was prohibited from entering the accounting system or directing employees. For the first time since he founded Hayes Development, Robert Hayes had a title but no power. Then Evelyn turned to me. "The company still needs a solution for Parkline." I placed the Caldwell Urban Purchase Agreement on the table. The offer was still available, but only for 48 more hours. Dad said, "I will never approve it." Eleanor answered before I could. "You no longer have that authority." The board accepted the offer. Dad closed his eyes. I expected to feel victorious. Instead, I felt the sadness of watching a building collapse after years of ignored cracks. The Parkline sale closed 5 weeks later. It paid most of the debt, restored the payroll reserve, and kept Hayes Development working as construction manager. Blue Ridge recovered its investment without seizing the warehouse or equipment yard. 73 employees kept their jobs. Dad and Tyler sold the Charleston condominium and repaid the remaining missing funds. Tyler also surrendered his shares as part of a civil settlement. The evidence was referred to investigators, and both men eventually pleaded guilty to financial offenses. Because the losses were repaid and neither had a prior conviction, they received probation, community service, and large fines instead of prison. Brenda lost her notary commission. She also cooperated fully and kept her job under new management. Mom's fraudulent guarantee was formally canceled, and the lake house was released from every claim. 3 months after the birthday dinner, Mom filed for legal separation. At first, Dad blamed me for everything. His voicemails said I had destroyed our family because I wanted revenge for being embarrassed at dinner. I kept one message for several weeks. Then I understood why I was holding it. It reminded me how easily people rename consequences when the truth embarrasses them. So I deleted it. Madison also sent me the complete dinner video. I watched Dad shove my chair away. I watched Aunt Vivian laugh. I watched Mom look down. And I watched myself stand there, calm on the outside and wounded underneath. Then I watched the moment I placed the folder beside his plate. That was not the moment I became powerful. It was the moment I stopped pretending I was powerless. 6 months later, Mom invited Madison and me to lunch at a small cafe in Raleigh. There was no private room, no crystal, and no one measuring anyone by a car or a title. Mom apologized for all the years she had stayed silent. I thought keeping the peace meant keeping the family together. She said. I took her hand. Sometimes it only protects the loudest person. Ooh, she cried. So did I. Dad and I did not reconcile quickly. Nearly a year later, he mailed me a handwritten letter with no excuses. He admitted he had confused money with authority, fear with respect, and silence with love. I accepted the apology, but I did not restore his control over my life. Forgiveness can open a door. It does not have to hand someone the key. Today, Haya's development is smaller but profitable. Samuel returned as chief financial officer. Evelyn became its permanent chief executive. Blue Ridge has grown, and I finally replaced my old Honda, although I still chose a practical car. That decision disappointed Tyler more than it should have. So here is the summary of my story. My father humiliated me at his birthday dinner because he believed I was poor and unsuccessful. He did not know my investment firm had purchased his company's defaulted loan. When I offered him a deal that could save the business, a hidden guarantee revealed that he had pledged my mother's lake house using a forged signature. Our investigation uncovered false invoices, missing money, and a scheme involving my father and cousin. I used my legal rights to stop the fraud, remove them from power, protect my mother's home, and save 73 innocent employees. And this is what my story taught me. Money does not determine a person's worth. Silence is not always peace. Family loyalty never requires protecting fraud or accepting humiliation. Real justice is not about destroying everyone near the person who hurt you. It is about protecting the innocent, exposing the truth, and making sure the right people carry the cost of their choices. Thank you for watching and listening until the end. Please like this story, share it, and tell me your thoughts in the comments. Also, tell me where you are listening from, because I would truly love to know how far Caroline's story has traveled. My father once pushed away my chair to show me where I did not belong. In the end, I did not beg for that seat. I saved the people worth saving, walked away from his table, and built one where no one has to prove they deserve to sit down.